Yo, what's poppin' YouTube? It's your brother, the MOPOWERZ, and we are back again, this time on a fantastic, Tuesday, giving you great information. I know I've been gone for a minute, as you all can see. I've been bending the map, whether it be through an Airbus or driving. Yes, driving is the best. Airbus, less travel time. But driving, most definitely, is the best way to go because you see so many different things. But today, we're going to start with the first book of the year. And that book is entitled Mis-Education of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. Now, most of you all would have a, let me show you here. Now, this book here, The Mis-Education of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, I wanted to put this photo up in the thumbnail, but it wouldn't fit. But rightfully so, I did put Carter G. Woodson himself in the thumbnail. Same book, but that gives him more, what's the word I want to look for? Honor. Even though it's his book and he got the female with the lock around her brain. And that is an absolute fact because many people do have locks on their brain. I'm just saying, can't get out of the stupid mode. Okay? But we're going to jump right into this book, Carter G. Woodson, The Mis-Education of the Negro. I hope you have some pen, and paper. Take some notes. And if you haven't researched any of those notes on the world's 16 crucified saviors, by all means, go and do that. Let me turn this volume up here, see where we at. We're about good. Okay. Now, chapter 1. It is entitled The Seat of Trouble. The educated Negroes have the attitude of contempt toward their own people because in their own as well as in their mixed schools, Negroes are taught to admire the Hebrew, the Greek, the Latin, and the Teuton, and to despise the African. Of the hundreds of the Negroes of high school recently examined by an expert in the United States Bureau of Education, only 18 offered a course taking up the history of the Negro, and in most of the Negro colleges and universities where the Negroes is thought of, the race is studied only as a problem or dismissed as of little consequence. For example, an officer of a Negro university, thinking that an additional course on the Negro should be given there, called upon a Negro doctor of philosophy of the faculty to offer such work. He promptly informed the officer that he knew nothing about the Negro. He did not go to school to waste his time that way. He went to be educated in a system which dismisses the Negro as a non-entity. I'm going to say that again. He went to be educated in a system which dismisses the Negro as a non-entity. Isn't that the same as we have today? That's how this system looks at us. As a non-entity, as a sore eye, as a cancer to humanity. When in reality, the system is the cancer. The system is what is killing you. It's killing you. Hugh, I'm just saying. Yeah. How many people graduate today from universities who think that they are still not that? How many? And know nothing of themselves. Nothing. Half of them, or more than half, you can't even get to read a book that is specifically educating them on them. Why? Because they've been reared in a culture that dismisses them as nothing. That's 100. You can take it or leave it. Think about it though. At a Negro summer school 2 years ago, a white instructor gave a course on the Negro using for his text a work which teaches that whites are superior to blacks. When asked by one of the students why he used to use such a textbook, the instructor replied that he wanted to get that point of view. Even schools for Negro then are places where they must be convinced of their inferiority. And this is how we're educated. We send our children to be educated in a system just like this. Trust me, I'm a former educator. And I used to cry because I could not go off of the curriculum to teach them what I really wanted to teach them. That's sad. Public school systems or teachings, especially nowadays, will cripple the minds of young black men and women as it has always did, unless being taught of a different curriculum. I'm just saying. Think about it. Why would you go to school to learn about white superiority and you inferior, when in fact it was you, Hugh, who taught civilization? Every sport that black people touch, they excel in it more than Caucasians do. Get black kids in an academic contest, whereas these kids are educated by their own curriculum and not by someone else's curriculum, and see what the outcome would be. Has anyone seen the 13-year-old genius, the black girl, medical student, about to graduate? 13. I did that video last year sometime. There's black greatness all over the planet. If there was no black greatness, there would be no white greatness. That's 100, because there would be no white people. I'm just saying. Now, that is history. That is science. That is actual fact. You can take that or leave that. That's not even up for debate. That's not even up for debate. And if you think that way, you need to stand over there by Walgreens somewhere, right? And get you a remedial course. 100. Black people are not inferior to white people. It's the system in which we are living in which is crippling you, especially the educational system, which gives you a position of inferiority because that's all you read about, you being inferior, which makes you think that you're supposed to be stuck there and that God placed you just like that. No way. The devil did that to you, okay? The devil did that to you. And I'm talking about the devil, yes, the human devil. Yeah, white supremacy system is a human devil machine. I'm just saying. It's a white demon machine. It's a white demon machine. They know it, and you know it. And by the way, this book was first written in 1933, sometime right after the Great Depression, right? And the very words that I'm reading to you are still true to this very day. And we're still on page 1. How many pages we got here? We got 17 chapters, which gives us 113 pages. We'll be finished with this in a whiff, right? Unlike the World's 16 Crucified Saviors, that was just dope, right? But we got more books coming up for you all. The thought of inferiority of the Negro is drilled into him in almost every class he enters in and almost every book he studies. If he happens to leave school after he masters the fundamentals before he finishes high school or reaches college, he will naturally escape some of this bias and may recover in time to be service to his people. He may be of a service to his people if he escape and get revitalized. Practically, all of the successful Negroes in this country are of the uneducated type. Look at all your sports players, okay? Look at Shaquille O'Neal. Look at Charles Barkley. Do you think they can really, I'm just saying. Do you really think that these people are academically inclined? I would have to disagree with you if you say that they are. I'm going to read this first sentence over. Practically all of the successful Negroes in this country are of the uneducated type, or of that of Negroes who have had no formal education at all. The large majority of Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are all but worthless in the development of their people. God. Smack. Smack. Did you hear that? I'm going to read that again. The large majority of the Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are but worthless in the development of their people. Stop me when he lying. Wow. If after leaving school, they have the opportunity to give out to Negroes, the traducers of the race would like to have it learn such persons may thereby earn a living at teaching or preaching what they may have been taught, but they never become a constructive force in the development of the race. The so-called school then becomes a questionable factor in the life of the despised people. As another has well said, to handicap a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse and that his struggle to change his condition is hopeless is the worst sort of lynching. It kills one's aspiration and dooms him to vagabondage and crime. It is strange then that the friends of truth and the promoters of freedom have not risen up against the present propaganda in the schools and crushed it. The crusade is so much more important than the anti-lynching movement, because there would be no lynching if it did not start in the schoolroom. I'm just saying. Why not exploit, enslave, or exterminate a class that everybody is taught to regard as inferior? To be more explicit, we may go to the seat of the trouble. Our most widely known school scholars have been trained in universities outside of the South. Northern and Western institutions, however, have had no time to deal with matters which concern the Negro especially. They must direct their attention to the problems of the majority of the constituents, and too often they have stimulated their prejudice by referring to the Negro as unworthy of consideration. Most of what these universities have offered as languages, mathematics, and science may have served a good purpose, but much of what they have taught as economics, history, literature, religion, and philosophy is propaganda. And can't that involve a waste of time and misdirected to the Negroes thus trained? Absolutely, because you're training him against his own self. Yes, my eye is itching. Yeah, when you go to school, you change. When you send your children to school, you send them to a concentration camp that teaches them to despise themselves and look upon themselves as if they are nothing. And we do this every day. And you wonder why your children is malfunctioning. And you wonder why your children are malfunctioning. You're sending them to a concentration camp to brainwash them, to make them think that they are malfunctioned, disregarded, discredited, a non-entity. You think about that. The system of this white supremacy that we live under, if a mother, no, see, that's the problem. If black people had their own thing, they wouldn't have to be worried about this school system. And we should have our own schools. Martin Luther King sold us out, sold us straight down the drain into integration. Now we have nothing. We used to have businesses like bus businesses. Yeah, black bus system, We had our own what? Cab service. We owned property. We own mom and pop stores. Now we don't own nothing. Nothing. But we've been here the longest. You got people talking about the greatness of Kemet and how we used to do this and how we were that. That was then, which is a reminder of our greatness, but we don't have anything now to go to. You have people talking about, well, let's go back to Africa. Go ahead. Go ahead. They are in a worse condition in which we are over here. Go right ahead. If you can't solve the problem or injustices where you're at, what do you think you're going to do over there where you don't know nobody? I'm just saying. Now, you can think that you're their brother because you all look alike, but you must remember how we got here. Y'all better stop playing. Y'all better stop playing. Now, to be more explicit, we may go to the seat of the trouble. Our most widely known schools have been trained in universities outside of the South. Northern and Western institutions, however, have had no time to deal with the matters which concern the Negro especially. They must direct their attention to the problems of the majority of their constituents, and too often they stimulated their prejudice by referring to the Negro as unworthy of consideration. Most of what these universities have offered as languages, mathematics, and science have been served as a good purpose, but much of which they have taught as economics, history, literature, religion, and philosophy is propaganda. And can't that involve a waste of time and miseducated the Negro thus trained? And even in the certitude of science or mathematics, it has been unfortunate that the approach to the Negro has been borrowed from a foreign method. That's right, they borrowed it from you. I hope y'all following me. For example, the teaching of arithmetic in the 5th grade in a backward country in Mississippi, in a backward county in Mississippi should mean one thing in the Negro school and a decidedly different thing in the white school. The Negro children, as a rule, come from the houses and homes of tenants and peons who have to migrate annually from plantation to plantation, looking for light which they have never seen. The children from the homes of white planters and merchants live permanently in the midst of calculations, family budgets, and the alike, which enable them to sometimes to learn more by contact than the Negro can acquire in school. Instead of teaching such a Negro children less arithmetic, they should be taught much more of it than the white children, for the latter attend a greater school consolidated by free transportation. When the Negro goes to one-room rented hovels to be taught without equipment and by incompetent teachers, educated scarcely beyond the 8th grade. That is so sad. Like, just think about it. If you're in 8th grade, you should be able to do 8th grade math, right? But they can't. They can't. And that is sad. But that's 100. In schools of theology, let me cut this off. In schools of theology, Negroes are taught the interpretation of the Bible worked out by those who have been justified or those who have justified segregation. Let me go over that sentence again. In schools of theology, Negroes are taught the interpretation of the Bible worked out by those who have justified segregation and winked at the economic debasement of the Negro, sometimes almost to the point of starvation. Deriving their sense of right from this teaching, graduates of such schools can have no message to grip the people whom they have been ill-trained to serve. I'm just saying. Most of such miseducated ministers therefore preach to benches while illiterate Negro preachers do the best they can in supplying the spiritual needs of the masses. And in that spiritual need of the masses are deceived by the preacher because the preacher have been deceived by the very same people who got the foot on his neck. I'm just saying. In the schools of business administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the psychology and economics of Wall Street and are therefore made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons, push banana carts, and sell peanuts among their own people. Foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes take up this business and grow rich. Prime example. Look at the stores in your neighborhood. Yeah, because they're neighborhoods. They're not communities because you don't run anything there. You got the Chinese there. You got the Arabs there. You got the Spanish there. And I'm talking about the Mexican man or the Puerto Rican man. But the Puerto Rican man is really black, but sometimes he think he's a foreigner too. I'm just saying. And they all get rich off of you. Have you ever seen the Mexican man in the neighborhood pushing the corn cart, or the lady pushing the corn cart, or the Mexican man with the cotton candy right in your neighborhood? You're not even thinking to yourself, how can you do that? No, you're too busy worrying about graduating from a white school, a white instituted school that is against you, that teaches you nothing about yourself. Why is it that you have to wait until you go to college to learn about economics? I'm just saying. In fact about it, they want you to become so illiterate that they don't even teach your children how to handwrite anymore. There's no more cursive writing. There's no more handwriting. It's all punch a button, punch a button. You say, Mo, that's technology. No, that's dummifying you. That's just like your smartphone. Your smartphone makes you dumb. I'm just saying. Think about that. In schools of journalism, Negroes are being taught how to edit such metropolitan dailies as the Chicago Tribune and New York Times, which will hardly hire a Negro as a janitor. And when these graduates come to the Negro weeklies for employment, they are not prepared to function in such establishments, which, to be successful, must be built upon accurate knowledge of the psychology and philosophy of the Negro. When a Negro has finished his education in our schools, then he has been equipped to begin the life of an Americanized or Europeanized white man. But before he steps from his threshold of his alma mater, meaning his college or university, he is told by his teachers that he must go back to his own people from whom he has been estranged by a vision of ideas which, in his delusionment, he will realize that he cannot attain. He goes forth to play his part in life. He goes forth to play his part in life just to live, but he must be both social and bisocial at the same time, while he is a part of the body politic, the demon machine. The demon machine. He is, in addition to this, a member of a particular race to which he must restrict himself in all matters social. While serving his country, he must serve within a special group. While being a good American, he must, above all things, be a good Negro, and to perform his definite function, he must learn to stay in a Negro's place. And that's how they teach your children. That's how they taught you. Think about it. Now I'm going to tell you what's sad about this. While you are sending your child to be miseducated, you are removing their common sense. Think about that. You're removing their common sense and you're transforming it or programming it to hate itself, to think of itself as nothing, to not even support its own self, meaning the whole body of itself that looks like them. Thanks, Martin Luther King. And then they whacked him right after that. They whacked him right after he did what they wanted him to do, or what he wanted to do for you, which was to cripple you financially. I'm just saying. I don't take nothing from Martin, but he crippled us even more so today. Even more so today. I don't understand why is it that we just can't support ourselves. If we spend all of this money in this economy, think about it. If we spent half of the money, if we took half of that money and did something for ourselves, but we can't even build for ourselves. You know why? Because we've been taught that that's the little people. That's the little people. That's what the poor people do. Well, when you go to your colleges and universities, don't you still live paycheck to paycheck? Especially today, look at what they're paying for rent. I'm just saying. And when you own a home, you never own it. Oh, I bought this home over here. No, you're leasing it. Even if you finish paying for it, you still leasing the land because you don't own the land. Just stop paying your taxes. And see, don't they confiscate your home after you spend 30, 40 years trying to pay for it? You don't own nothing. Not even your own business. Not even an ice wagon. Not even a peanut stand to serve your own people. You don't have this. We don't have this. Everybody else has it. Everybody else has it. And why when we see each other, we look so hostile toward one another? Have you ever got on the Chicago train or Chicago bus and felt the tension when you got on the bus? Everybody looks mad and angry and upset. It's sad. Not to mention scary. Because you don't know who's holding. And as I stated in a couple of videos, anybody can get it, especially in Chicago. Sad. We just play the role in life. While serving his country, he must serve within a special group while being a good American, a good nigger. Because that's what they call you. Even after you graduate with a PhD, they still call you nigger. For the arduous task of serving a race thus handicapped, however, the Negro graduate has had little or no training at all. Even after you graduated, you still have had little or no training at all. These people whom he has ordered to serve have been belittled by his teachers to the extent that he can hardly find delight in undertaking what his education has led him to think that is impossible to do. Just look at your next door neighbor. Look at your block that you stay on. Look at your environment and stop me when I'm lying. It's hard to talk to people who look like me. They would rather go get their information from somebody else. Sad, but true, because we have been trained that we don't know anything. I guarantee you, if I was to walk up to you on the street with a white dude in a suit, I don't have a suit, I just have this jogging suit on. And the white dude, they have on a suit. And he says that he's a teacher. And I tell you that I'm a teacher. Who would you more than likely listen to? Sad, but true. And if you notice, that only happens with us. That only happens with us. Mis-Education of the Negro. I'm just saying. The performance is kept up for a while, but like any other effort at meaningless imitation, its results is failure. Now, I just wonder, even with all of these great Black leaders that we had, even like with Elijah Muhammad with the Nation of Islam, I wonder, had he not got some of his money from white philanthropists, I wonder if he really would have been successful like that. Because he was getting money, not only from Black people, but from white people as well. And Elijah Muhammad gave you some truth. He gave you some truth. He gave you enough truth for you to stop being in the condition in which you're in. He gave you that. All of the religious dogma, that's a whole nother entity. But he gave you the wisdom on how to go for yourself and do for yourself. But no. Why? Because we had guys like Martin talk about, let's integrate. Let's give them all our money, even after they kicked you out of restaurants, spit on you, slapped you in the face with milkshakes, okay? But still, you want to sit at their counters. The miseducation of the Negro. And now that we've reached this level, whereas we can go into business establishments, that's not ours, and get served or not served, because a business still has a right to refuse you if they want to. Y'all better stop playing with me. Y'all better stop playing with me. Sad, but true. Facing this undesirable result, the highly educated Negroes often grow sour because Black people not listening to him. They not supporting him. They supporting the ops. I'm just saying. He becomes too pessimistic to be a constructive force and usually develops into a chronic fault finder or a complainant at the bar of public opinion. Often when he sees that the fault lies at the door of the white oppressor whom he is afraid to attack, he turns upon the pioneering Negro who is at work doing the best he can to extricate himself from the uncomfortable predicament. Don't you see that all the time? One crab is on his way out the barrel, on his way out the hood, so that he can help you. But the little crab, the sad crab, the nigger crab, tries to pull him back down, pull him back in the hood, so that he can still be like him. People hate it when you're different than them. When you have a higher form of thinking, I don't care if it's your family member. I'm going to do a live on Chicago about that. 100. So be watching out for the Mosho Chicago live that I'm going to drop tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But be watching out for it. Hopefully you'll get your notification, but it will be today or tomorrow in regards to what I just said about crabs. I don't care if they family. Family are the worst because they know you or they think they know you. Especially when you've transformed into a whole nother entity while they're still the same being. Nothing. Ain't going nowhere. We got to get off into that one. That's 100. Because that really hurt my soul when family do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But anyway, getting back to this great book, The Miseducation of the Negro, in its effort to imitate, however, these educated people are sincere. In this effort to imitate, however, these educated people are sincere. We are sincere. We are since how many black people watching this video right now? How many black people would rather be watching something about Takeoff or T.I. or Lil Boosie or Troy Lanez or Megan Thee Stallion? Y'all would be rather watching that video than watching this video. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do. But I do know that most people who look like me don't even pick up the book to read, especially when it's about themselves. Truth or a vertical movement upward, thinking wise, they don't have time. But they got time for Tory Lanez. They got time for Megan Thee Stallion. They got time for Cardi B. They got time for Takeoff. Programming for destruction. The miseducation of the Negro. I'm just saying. In its effort to imitate, however, these uneducated people, we are sincere. They hope to make the Negro conform quickly to the standard of the whites and thus remove the pretext for the barriers between the races. They do not realize, however, that even if the Negroes do successfully imitate the white, nothing new has thereby been accomplished. You simply have a larger number of persons doing what others have been doing. The usual gifts of the race have not been thereby been developed, and an unwilling world therefore continues to wonder what the Negro is good for. Okay? And you wonder why your children don't want to be like you. How many children wanted to be like their parents? I wanted to be like my dad. My dad had cash. My dad worked his ass off, but dad had cash. I didn't understand when I was a kid growing up what it took to be a man. But I saw one eventually as I grew. But if you don't see a man, you don't know what it's like to be a man. And many women today can't find a man because there are no men. And those that they do find, they try to dog them out. They try to walk all over them because they're used to trash. They're used to the, I'm a demon. I'm a real nigga. That's what they used to. Think about it. Think about the people that's next door to you. Think about the people that you may have access to or be around all the time. Sad, but true. And all of us not like that. You have plenty good black people in this world left. It's just sad that we don't listen to each other. And it's sad that we don't have common sense enough to come together. It's sad that when strangers treat you better than your own family, blood family. That is SAD with 2 exclamation points, okay? These educated people, however, decry any such thing as race consciousness, and in some respects they are right. They do not like to hear such expressions as Negro literature, Negro poetry, African art, or thinking black. And roughly speaking, we must concede that such things do not exist. These things do not figure in the course which they pursued in school. Why should they? Aren't we all Americans? Then whatever is American is as much as the heritage of the Negro as of any other group in this country. The highly educated contend, moreover, that when the Negro emphasizes these things, he invites racial discrimination by recognizing such differentness of the races. That thought of the Negro is one thing and that the white man is another thing is a stock in trade argument of the Caucasian to justify segregation. Why then should the Negro blame the white man for doing what he himself does? These highly educated Negroes, however, fail to see that it is not the Negro who takes this position. The white man forces him to it, and to extricate himself therefrom, the Negro leader must so deal with the situation as to develop in the segregated group the power with which they can elevate themselves. The difference of races is, we're talking about Clarence Thomas now. Anyway, the differences of races, okay, is no evidence of superiority, of inferiority. This merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which others do not possess. It is by the development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. Before we get on to what right do you have to exist? We're just useless eaters. If Hitler was here, he would kill us all. Would you fight Hitler? I'm just saying, because he would. He'll kill you. Just as this system would. You talk about a Nazi German system. What do you think this system is? This is a Nazi German system too. I'm just saying. There's no difference. This system, this white supremacy system, is a Nazi German system. You can take it or leave it. That is not even up for debate. And I try to hit you with facts that you can't debate. Leave no room for debate. Sometimes you may have to make a person think. But I try not to leave room. Yeah. Because obviously some people can't think. Sad to say, sometimes you just can't fix stupid. I'm just saying. Because most of our people have been made that way. And I'm not just saying from this white supremacy system. If you know that this is a white supremacy system and you know that this system is an op against you, then you should put yourself in a better situation with someone who looks like you, but we don't. So what did that tell you? We have a malfunction in our chip.